We're pleased to introduce JoAnn Mermis here in Goleta and Benny Gutierrez. They are representing the Freedom to Choose project. The title of their presentation is Freedom to Choose, Change from the Inside. Welcome, JoAnn and Benny, and I'm going to give JoAnn my headset so she can speak from this seat.
Ironically, I represent an organization called Freedom to Choose, following Dr. Anthony. It's really interesting. I was trying to digest everything he was saying. I totally respect him as a scientist, and it was very, very interesting. So I'm just going to speak from my heart to you about my experience of being a member of the Freedom to Choose organization. How we got started was in 2004, we went out. I believe the prison was even mentioned by, I think, Fritzy, the women's prison out at Chowchilla, which was then housing 4,000 women. I volunteered to go with a group of 25 people to teach some life-changing concepts to prisoners. Now, I myself don't know anybody who's been in prison. I don't have relatives who've been in prison, but I'm very curious about how we're rehabilitating people, because personally I'm all about living in a more peaceful world. I love John Lennon's song Imagine, so that's my motto for my life. World peace. Wouldn't it be nice if we had no religion and no boundaries? Yes. This project was started when an inmate there at the women's prison named Rhonda wrote a letter to Ron Holnick, who was the president of University of Santa Monica, where I got a master's degree in psychology. And she said, can't you come out here and just give us a seminar, because it's just terrible in here and I'm never getting out of several life sentences. And my parole date, I can't even go before the board until like 2036 or something. By the way, she has been found suitable to be released. We're just waiting on the governor's approval, but that's a whole other story that I could go on to for the whole 30 minutes. So we'll just go on with that. And I invite you all to go onto our website and just read about us. I'm going to tell you about my experience of going to the prison and why I keep going. I've been going for 16 years before the pandemic. Then they stopped us going into the prisons because of the pandemic. So fortunately, I get to go live again for the first time in a month to Thomson prisons. I'm very excited about going there and presenting our seminar. So what do? We give a 2-day seminar to the inmates. What do we teach them? Our teachings are based on Viktor Frankl's work. He was a psychologist, an Austrian psychologist who was incarcerated by the Nazis. And he said, well, they took everything away from me in prison, but one thing they could not take from me was my freedom to choose my attitude. Dr. Frankl taught that between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space, we have the freedom to choose our response, which might give us a different outcome. I was very fascinated with the Compassion Prison Project, because we give people the tools to work with themselves. We teach people how to learn to self-heal themselves through respect, through perception checking, through listening skills, and the big one is self-forgiveness. Our program has been highly successful. In fact, we've sat with over 5,000, I think almost 5,500 prisoners to date. And we started in one prison, and now the state of California has granted us, I think, 6 grants. So now we're in at least 6 prisons live. And during the pandemic, we were sending our information into 39 prisons with much success. We think our rate of recidivism is much lower than the national average. So as I say, I'm just speaking from my experience and what's happened with our program in helping people stay in the free world. So we teach them the skills to keep the job once they get out, or we teach them skills to have a better relationship inside the prison with their friends inside the prison and also with their families outside the prison. I don't want to take up too much time because I want you to hear from Benny Gutierrez, who I'm going to introduce here in just a moment. And he's someone who will tell you his experience of going through our program in the prison. I know Benny from going into the prison out in Chowchilla. We believe, yes, like everyone's been saying, our criminal justice system is broken. So why should I care? All right, we've got nearly 2.5 million Americans incarcerated, which in 1985, the statistic was 500,000. What's wrong with that? 50% will return to prison within 3 years, costs us about $80 billion annually. That's a whole other conversation, though, because it also employs a lot of people. So it's big business, too. 95% of incarcerated people will rejoin our communities. Punishment fails, which is obvious, everybody's talk here today. Rehabilitation works, and we think we have some tools that really help people get rehabilitated. Since 2004, which was the year that I went, I was on the first trip out to Valley State Prison for women. Since 2004, the Freedom to Choose Project has served over 5,483 participants in 39 prisons, as I mentioned before. The pandemic did present us with a lot of challenges, but Freedom to Choose pivoted from conducting in-person programs to a newly developed correspondence program, which has already reached 1,160 participants. In December 3 to 4, we're going to Folsom Prison. I mentioned that. I'm excited to go. So what Freedom to Choose in-prison participants and alumni have to share, alumni equals Freedom to Choose formerly incarcerated participants. So once they've taken our seminar even one time, we consider them a mentor. So when we go into the prison, we sit in trios. There'll be one of us to two of them. But if you're a mentor now in the prison, you can sit with two of the incarcerated people. And here's a quote from one of them. I've been incarcerated for 16 years and have struggled with my belief that I was unredeemable. But what I learned from Freedom to Choose is that I am worthy. You mentioned that. Somebody mentioned that about teaching people to get over not being worthy, not being enough. But what he learned was, I am worthy of freedom and I have peace in my heart. This looks like where I sit. We go into the gymnasium. There might be 250 to 300 prisoners to about 60 to 80 of us volunteers. We are all volunteers. We come from all over the nation. Actually, some people come from internationally. There used to be a wait list of volunteers to go because we all want to go. It's really fun. I tell people, I really enjoy going to the prison. There's more consciousness in there. I have real conversations with people because we're teaching people how to converse with each other also. Here's some of the gentlemen I know from prison, and exciting to see them. I encourage you to go onto our website, freedomtocooseproject.org. And of course, we teach love, respect, and guess what? We get love and respect back from them. And this is an example of us sitting in the trios. Yes, here's a volunteer. The life you change may be your own, and that's why I keep going, because I get personally so much out of it. I'm working what we call my process along with the prisoners. So I get to practice these skills of self-forgiveness, perception checking, love, all these things that don't we all want in life. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Benny. Benny? By the way, Benny's just recovering from COVID, I just learned, and he had a little car accident, and he just feels passionate about our program, so he's making a big effort to share with us today.
Okay, so well, thank you for the invitation. Thank you for putting this workshop on today. Very important work. Andy Thomson, you were just spitting game right now. So my name's Benny. Yeah, my story is pretty typical for where I come from. I was raised in South Modesto. It's pretty grimy. There's really nothing good there at all. Yeah, I had a lot of trauma growing up in that area, from, my parents' divorce to my brother and my sister were both murdered, like on separate occasions. I was sexually abused by the youth pastor at a church down there when I was going to Awanas. I don't know if you guys know what Awanas is. Because of this, and like my mother, she was a single mother raising us down there. Like, I had no guidance whatsoever. So I started real young, running the streets, I was first arrested at age 10 for vandalism. And then at age 12, until very recently, it was just one continuous line of I was either incarcerated or on some form of probation or parole or absconding out here in the streets. Yeah, and I really embraced that lifestyle. I thought it was for me. And it led me from juvenile hall to group homes to boys ranches, California Youth Authority, prison, and then the prison of prisons, Pelican Bay SHU. Once I was at Pelican Bay SHU, I was fortunate to be around some solid individuals. I mean, there were guys that were up in that box for decades. They'd been in a box for decades. And like I asked them, like, how did you keep your sanity? And so, they taught me to stay relevant, to continue to write people on the streets and watch the news. But I just realized, because for most gang members, that's the pinnacle. You've arrived once you got to Pelican Bay SHU. And I was just so underwhelmed when I got there and like not impressed by my leadership. And like I had done so much for the gang. I was just so disheartened that I left the gang, and that's a whole process in itself. Eventually, I was sent to Valley State Prison in Chowchilla, and I remember our orientation. So like that Saturday, they put us in a room, and we're all sitting there. All the new arrivals are sitting there. 10 inmates walk in, and they begin to welcome us to the prison. Each one gets up and they're taking turns telling us, like one person's telling us about all the sports groups that you can sign up for. One person gets up and is telling us about all the education that you could sign up for, college or GED. One guy's talking about the religious programs. And these guys are so nice. These inmates are so nice and they're being so respectful. Like the whole time I'm like, where are the cops at? Who are these guys putting on this show for? Right? Because I know they're fake. Nobody's like that. This is prison. And there were no cops in the room. These guys were spending their Saturday morning with me, genuinely to give me options. And like when I first went to prison at 19, I had no options. Like I was already a gang member. I was told, we sit over here, they sit over there. We do this, we do that. No choices, no options. No one tried to tell me how to better my life and get a GED or go to school, none of that. So those guys, I wanted to be friends with them. Like I wanted to be in their circle because they seemed happy, they seemed respectful, and I just wanted some of that. And a lot of those guys were going to Freedom to Choose. At the time, Freedom to Choose was coming in maybe twice a year in the gym. I was actually in that picture. You can see the back of my head in that picture. And these workshops, it just blew my mind that all these volunteers were coming to the streets and they genuinely and truly cared about me. And there were a lot of tears and a lot of opening up. And yeah, I was sold from day one. Like at the time, like I said, it was only twice a year, but then they developed the program further and they started an ILTAG group. And so they were coming in weekly. So we were getting that juice every week. Before we would get it, we'd go to one of these workshops for the weekend. We'd feel high for 3 days, and then bam, you're still in prison. But going to the ILTAG every week, becoming a mentor myself, yeah, I changed. I became a different person. Just learning to articulate my emotions. Like I never, like I stuff my emotions. I put them far away so I don't have to feel them or deal with them or mask them with drugs and alcohol. But yeah, being able to articulate my emotions, to be able to sit with them. The program made me a better listener. It made me more compassionate. Yeah, and so I was paroled in December 2018. And so remember, from age 12 until last December, in a continuous straight line, I was incarcerated or on some form under their thumb, but of my own doing. I would get out and immediately abscond parole or not even bother to show up to my parole officer because I know my role. I'm a thug, a gangster right out here, and like, you guys got to catch me now. And it was just in and out, in and out, in and out. I just discharged parole first time ever, and a lot more. So like before, when I would parole, my parole plans were, I'm gonna do good. I'm gonna do good. You know, that was my parole plan. I'm gonna do good. No substance, you know, just very, needless to say, within a week I'd pick up a sack, I'd start selling dope again, using drugs, and I'd be back in prison within a couple months. I had a very different relationship with parole and law enforcement. When I went to the sheriff's department one day for a tour, all these sheriffs came out of their holes to come see if it was true, if I really had changed, if I'm really on, not their side, but like not against them anymore. And like a lot of them came and shook my hands. It was very surreal for me. I took classes at the local community college. I started a club there called Ascending Scholars for formerly incarcerated students. Now it's called Rising Scholars, and it's a huge program statewide, and it's helping a lot of people. And so I'm very proud of that. I was also I was a staff writer for the school paper, the Roadrunner, and I wrote an article that was responsible for changing their hiring policy. They were in violation of Ban the Box, of California's Ban the Box, and I got it changed with my story. And so, you know, I graduated. I'm in Chico right now. I'm in Chico State. I just graduated in May with a degree in humanities, and there, like, I was continuous dean's list, like all these accolades. And I started a club there called Rebound Scholars for formerly incarcerated students, and we're trying to get Project Rebound at Chico State. In the height of the pandemic, we did a Black Lives Matter art show because all the other galleries here in town were shut down. And so, yeah, we did this Black Lives Matter art show. We raised $2,000 for Color Change. Anybody's interested, they can find us at greenhouse.studio on Instagram and Facebook. Yeah, I did some prisoner art shows. Like, I've just been out here doing it. To be honest, though, from having the structure of prison for so long and then the structure of school, once I graduated, like, I was expecting to get a job, like right away get a job. My resume is stellar. My resume is all that. And it's been very difficult and quite depressing sometimes. And like 3 days ago, I got sideswiped by somebody in the rain. And because she was technically, it's her right away and there were no witnesses, that was the nicest car I ever had. It was a 2006 Acura. Just got it a few months ago. $7,000. It's a lot of money for me. And it's gone. And then I tested positive for COVID the next day. And I'm just like, wow, when it rains, it pours. But I do believe that from the point of any type of influence, right? Like, I love what Andy Thomson was talking about, because a lot of those factors led me to commit crimes. I know it, I know it. I believe that there's this space, and the more practice you give it, you can widen that space and to just slow things down and to make the decision that's right for that moment. And so, like, I'm just taking it on the chin, I'm doing odd jobs around town. I've already had like second interview with this company. I've had a third interview with this company. Like, something's bound to give, but it's rough. This program, a lot of these volunteers are now my friends, my good friends. They're in my network. We see them. We have dinner together. My family, they cannot believe I was the cousin that nobody wanted around. I was the cousin that I was a scandalous guy. I was a drug addict and thought the world owed me everything. Now my family calls me when they need help, and it's just a blessing to be able to have their forgiveness and their love, and to be able to help them. And I credit Freedom to Choose with helping this change. A lot of it's on me, though. I credit myself too. Like, I'm the one who stepped away from the gang. I'm the one who, did the work in school. So I give myself a lot of credit. And what JoAnn was talking about with the self-forgiveness, that's the hardest thing. That's been the hardest thing for me. And it's something that I still work on. But I feel that my future's bright. if anybody is in the Los Angeles area or anywhere, I urge you to volunteer with Freedom to Choose. It's a great program. It's changing lives. Yeah, I'm very thankful, and I'm thankful for this opportunity to speak. If there are any questions that you would like to ask, either one of us.
Well, we're actually out of time, Judy. I'm sorry.
Perfect.
So thank you, Benny and JoAnn. And I did ask Dr. Andy ahead of time whether there was an inconsistency between his free will discussion and freedom to choose. And what he told me is no, we are an open system. And so the influences that we're all impacted by can make a difference in the future that we have. And so let's get involved. Thank you so much to JoAnn and Benny.